Welcome to Real Talk Real Estate, the show where we cover how to build wealth in real estate with no fluff, no BS, and no sales pitches. I'm David Green, and I've been doing this for over 10 years. I've seen the ups, the downs, and everything in between. This is the show where we pull back the curtain and show it to you too. So if you want to build wealth through real estate or you just love learning about it, you found your home. What's up, Real Talk Real Estate? I'm David Green, and this is Real Talk Realtor with another amazing episode for y'all today. Danyl Foulger, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, you came highly recommended from one of your previous clients, which is probably the best thing that someone can say about a realtor. Can you tell us a little bit about where you serve, what your business is like, and how you're doing business in today's market?
Sure. I'm licensed in Salt Lake City, Utah. I got my license for my 18th birthday back in 2008. So go ahead and date me on that. And I've been doing real estate for a long time. I've kind of taken the approach of getting to know people and building those relationships. So it's been pretty good. The real estate market here in Salt Lake has been busy, fabulous. I just spent the last hour and a half learning about all the market trends with everything we have going on right now. So I'm a little bit, overwhelmed with it, but just learning how to pivot in the market, and it's still pretty busy. So it's been wonderful.
All right, awesome. And we're not comparing anyone to anyone else, but just on average, approximately how many transactions are you closing in a year most years?
I would say probably between, I don't know, I guess it depends on the year. Last year, I think I did about 15 of them. The years before, the crazy years, we're doing, 30. So I'm your average, but top 500 here in Salt Lake. So
I think average is probably like one a year, if we're being honest. Like most realtors listening to this, no shame to them, but they're not selling anything at all. It's really hard to get into this. So 12 to 15 a year is nothing to shake a stick at. What's your average price point for most deals you're doing?
Salt Lake City. So I'm in two different markets in Utah. Salt Lake City, our average sales price is, I'd say, about $600 to $700. I also serve up in Eden. So for anybody, most people listening, Eden's like a small park city. Your average sales price is between, I'd say, 1.5 and 2.5.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you're new to real estate, what this means is there's a lot of competition for these deals. When the price points get up above 600,000, you start getting teams and businesses that are literally spending ad dollars to try to get to the sellers before you get there. You get agents that are offering back part of their commission as a way to try to entice the buyers to work with them. It gets to be a little more cutthroat, which means it's that much harder to sell houses. When you're in the sub $250,000 markets, like a lot of our listeners are, that's hard for them to understand because no one's fighting to work with a $250,000 buyer. They're usually coming to you. So you have to do something to stand out to get people to want to work with you. And that's where I'd like to start this. What have you noticed is working for you in that competitive market versus what some of the agents that are struggling aren't doing well?
So I guess in Salt Lake, it's rare for us to get homes, especially 2020 and beyond. It's rare for us to even have anything available under the 300. But for me, just kind of pivoting that mindset, and it's not necessarily like a luxury price point or a luxury home, but a luxury experience. I'll work with, I love working with first-time home buyers. So if you can get first-time home buyers in those lower price points, and just kind of changing that experience for them, is really, I think, what would separate you from that.
So what are some things you do to kind of create a different experience?
So I kind of switched it over to, rather than just being a real estate agent, I'm an advisor. So for example, I get clients that come to me a lot that say, I want to invest in real estate. David, I'm sure you've heard that dozens of times.
Yeah.
But the most important question is, okay, that's great, but how do you want to invest in real estate? Do you want short-term rentals, long-term rentals? Do you want to house hack? There's millions of different ways that you can do that. So being able to, I think that's one of the first things, to do is, instead of having it be a transaction, educating the people and serving them on how that is, how to, I guess, create that roadmap for them. Would be the first thing to separate it. It doesn't stop at just, buying and selling a home. It's how do we get you to the next one? How do we set you up, to build that wealth?
Yeah. Ideally, as an agent, you want to be seen as like an advisor and a servant, as opposed to how do I get some money out of you on this transaction and then throw you back into the ocean, right? That catch and release method is, I think, how a lot of agents, unfortunately, have entered into the fray. It has done a lot of damage to the reputation of realtors versus, okay, I caught a fish. How do I keep it in the live well, take it home, put it in my pond, feed it every day, help it grow, and then get some baby fishies out of it? So did you have like a mentor that taught you to take this approach, or was this just something you were raised with?
I think it was something I was raised with, and if I'm being honest, had I a lot of questions that I get asked is what would what would you change earlier on, especially being 18, getting into real estate. I definitely wish I would have been either at a brokerage that had a mentor or some sort of training support. But I do think I just had a lot of that ingrained in me and just building that relationship. Now my business, I mean, you just asked me my numbers. My business is 100% referrals and repeat clients. I don't do any marketing. I probably should, but a lot of those people, you just build those relationships, and years down the road, you foster them, and you're their go-to for everything. It's not even just real estate. So
Yeah, that's a big piece. I have a different episode where I was talking with realtor Kelly Skevel in New York, and we were talking about how a lot of people look at their job is a real estate salesperson or real estate agent, meaning like I show homes and I take listings and I collect commissions from those people, versus I'm a real estate professional. I serve people when it comes to real estate. Showing homes and taking listings is one of the way I do that. It also may be property management. It may be home services. I connect you with a person when you need a new roof or when your chimney needs to be fixed. Like, you want to be the person that they think of when anything breaks in their house. And you're like, yep, good thing we got that home warranty for you when I negotiated your deal. Let me connect you with the home warranty person. And so they associate you with the hero when something goes wrong. And then naturally they remember you when their friend wants to sell a house or buy a house. And this sounds very simple. It just, I don't know what it is. In the last decade, we've gotten away from that approach. It's sort of become a conveyor belt of get an online lead that you don't know. They're talking to you and four other. It's kind of like the Tinder approach to real estate where nobody is really committed to anybody else. And it's like gotten messy. Like, what's been your experience like that in Utah with how realtors have been running their businesses?
Um, well, I think everybody just gets, it's on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And so you're right. It's a conveyor belt of how do we get them to come in, and then once the deal's done, they just move on. So I also think in the last couple of years, it's been harder for people to connect with, like not even just like emotionally, just actual connections. Obviously, COVID did a number on everybody. And so I feel like we are now just in a day and age where it's difficult for people. It's almost easier not to foster relationships. It's more of transactional world that we live in right now. And that's just not me. I am definitely I don't know, a love bug socially. And, I build those relationships, and, people like Angela, like I said, you come in and now you're here and you're part of it, and you're going to call me when you need anything.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty good.
Yeah, so we got connected because Angela, who has also been
Yeah.
on this show, and she was talking about her experience with an agent in Utah that was great, and then she was disappointed when she sold property somewhere else. Folks, cat's out of the bag. This is the great agent right here. And I know one of the things you're passionate about is, like, particularly with the listing, pricing it correctly, explaining to the client why it should be priced that way, and not letting the client choose the price they want and then just being blamed when it doesn't sell. And now you end up in this adversarial relationship of finger pointing, right? Can you walk us
True.
through your perspective on pricing listings and the way that you have these conversations?
No, absolutely. So I think it's critical that, CMAs, anybody can run a CMA. I think it's beyond that. I shouldn't say anybody can run a CMA. Everybody can look on Zillow, a general idea on pricing homes and things like that. But it's so far beyond that. You've got to price for the strategy and the goals of the people. I have clients where their goals are going to be very different on selling their house. Some people are relocating and they have to. Some people want to sell it. But being able to sit down and look at those numbers and price for the strategy of the client and the need of the client is critical. But also having those honest conversations. I'm not scared to sit down with somebody and have that conversation if they want to price a home, higher than what I'm recommending, we're going to come up with a game plan and a goal, because I don't want to waste their time, my time. I've actually written it in. I don't know if I can say this. I've written it into my contracts where it's our listing agreement. I say, okay, that's great. You want to start at that price. Here's the price that I've recommended. We will sit on the market for X amount of days. And once we hit that time, we're going to drop to the price that I've recommended, and we're going to change strategies. So
I love
it's
that.
something that's worked pretty well.
Yeah. So a little bit of background to understand why that's what you have to do. If you haven't been on a lot of listing agreements, you'll find that you show up, and if you don't have a pre-existing relationship with this client, they're dating you while they're dating other people, just like on Tinder. So they've been checking it out. They've been swiping around, and now they're like, okay, I've narrowed it down to these 3 or 4. Who's got the most of what I want? Who's going to chase me the hardest? Who's going to discount their commission the most? Who's got the best marketing plan? They're kind of dating the realtors. And when you're the honest realtor and you're like, hey, I'm looking for a marriage here. I'm looking for commitment because I'm committed. I'm looking for you to be just as committed to me. And I'm going to be honest with you. Here's what your house is going to sell for, and here's how we're going to sell it. The problem is when the other realtor comes and says, oh, no, I can sell it for way more. I'm better than the other agent, and so you should use me. Where they're not. The buyer doesn't care who the listing agent is. The buyer compares your house to all the other houses that are out there in that price range and picks the one that they like the most. That's very simple. The key is getting that property to be the best option in the price range that it's in. So you either drop the price or you improve the condition, but those are the only 2 ways that you're going to make a house sell for more. But if you're honest, you put yourself at a disadvantage with the seller who's being told something different, right? So your strategy, I'm hearing, is like, hey, I think this, you think that. Rather than fighting, let's list it at your price for 2 weeks or for 4 weeks. And when that doesn't work, we'll drop to my price. So if you happen to be right, you'll get your price. But if I happen to be right, we'll sell the house where I think it goes. Either way, we're on the same team. We're not at odds with each other.
Sure. I like the way that you laid that out. As you were saying, I was like, "Ooh, that sounds a little more risky than it than it has been." But I guess it could be risky, but
Yeah.
it works out.
How did you come up with this approach to where you're going to write it in the contract? Was that trial and error? Did you have a mentor that kind of taught you that?
So it was actually a dear friend of mine. They've probably bought and sold, I'd say, half a dozen homes with me. It was on their first time we've ever listed one of their properties. He's kind of a very particular guy. He had a number in his head. He wasn't willing to go away from it. So I just kind of had to sit with myself and say, okay, there's a friendship on the line at this point. If I take it on, and it could, create a little bit of friction. And so I just kind of came up with it, and it worked really well. And, we were able to kind of just build that rapport. And I don't do it all the time. Most of the time people, will be understanding. They're hiring me for a reason, and they'll just trust the judgment on it. But, in the strategy call, but it worked out really well. And I've utilized it as a tool, just one of those things that you put to the side if you need it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. One of the things in the books that I wrote for realtors, I believe it's in the book Sold and also the book Scale, is something that we call triangle theory. So the problem that realtors have is your client wants something, you want something different. You want to list it at price A, they want to list it at price B. Or this works with buyers too. They want to pay under asking price on a house that's getting 10 offers. You want them to write a price that is going to actually get accepted, right?
Sure.
So you find yourself in this adversarial situation that you don't want to be in. And if you overpower them with, hey, I'm smarter than you, I know better, this is the mistake I made at the beginning of my career. I know way more about real estate than you do. Just shut up and we're going to go with my way. Even when you win, you now have a damaged relationship with your client. So you kind of lost. And if you lose and they write it at the price they want to, or they list it at the price they want to, well, you both lost because it's not going to work. So I came up with something called triangle theory, where we create a third party and that becomes the bad guy. So when you're trying to sell the house, the third party would be the CMA. Hey, this is what all the people are paying. Don't be mad at me. It's that dang CMA that's causing all the problem. But like, you and me can join against that CMA, and this is where we're going to price it based on it. Or it's these other 10 pesky buyers that are screwing this thing up. It's not, you're not the person at fault. It's that, right? Or it's the listing agent that overpriced the house in the first place, but now the seller thinks they're going to get it. So that's still our best option compared to the other. You always have to create something else to compare what they want to. And that's very similar to what you're describing here, is don't clash with your client. like figure out a way to put yourself on the same team aligned against that bad guy third party that you kind of created in the scenario. And that ties me back to one of the things that you've talked about is your customized communication style. You don't talk to every single person the same way. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so I actually just recently, so I've got kind of an interesting story that I'll share really quick, but everybody communicates differently, right? So at the very beginning, I always like to, what's the best form of communication? Some people like texting, some people love phone calls. And really, the reality is, if you can figure out how to best communicate with them, they're always going to feel that touch, right? That need. They're not going to have to reference, how you hear all the time about how the communication. So I actually just had a referral from an agent who the agent kind of got on my case a little bit because she was saying that there wasn't communication that was up to her standard. She actually wasn't even a part of the transaction, just referred an agent or a client over to me. And, so I just asked the question, has this been, some feedback that you've received? And she said, no, I just have this expectation that I want to communicate this way and all of my clients will fall in line. And I just remember hearing that and thinking, oh my goodness, like this poor, and I mean, outside of the communication, the client was texting me, I'm feeling overwhelmed. The way that's communicating, I don't like group messages. I don't like this. And I think a lot of times we just get it in our heads. We hear, we read these books, we go to these sales meetings, and it has to be a certain way. And we want everybody to just fit into that box. And it really can create, this tension between you and your client. And I think it can be alleviated by just asking the simple question, what is it that you need? How do you want me to communicate that?
That is a
So
great
that
point.
was a whole thing.
But I mean, that shows up in our dynamics with the agents on the other side of the transaction just as much. There's these, like the concept of an unwritten rule in sports. Like there's nothing that says you can't do it, but it's kind of understood by both sides that if you're winning by 10, you're not going to steal a base. That's just like spitting in their face type of deal. There's unwritten rules in real estate sales, but a lot of the time they're not communicated. So the agent on the other side thinks that you should be telling them every time you do one of the things that need to be done for your own client, but you think, yeah, that's not really your issue. Unless I need something, I'm not going to go tell you what was going on. And it creates that frustration. And then they go drinking after work and they complain about you to all the other agents. Like agents can be really bad about this, right? So you mentioned that you like to just ask the client, how do you want to be communicated with? And I will tailor my approach to your style. How do those conversations go down?
A lot of it's just in the initial consultation. So I set expectations. For me, I'm actually a big communicator, which is kind of surprising that I had that story. And in the initial consultation, I sit down and talk to them exactly about that. How do you want to be communicated with? If it's a listing, I do updates weekly so they know exactly the day that they're going to hear from me. I'm a big time blocker, so it's blocked out in my calendar when I send out updates. Do you want an email? Would you like a phone call? If you want, do you want to be alerted for every single, showing? And you kind of just tailor it to them while keeping it within the boundaries, right? It's important for us to kind of guide them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's putting them in the box and forcing it isn't going to create lasting relationships. They're never going to want to call you again.
Have you had exposure to or experience with the DISC personality profile?
I have.
What's your thoughts on if that's an effective way for agents to increase their communication?
I'm a big proponent for it. I think it's good for, I don't know, I think everybody. It just gives you a little bit of insight
Oh,
to
I'm a
it. So,
huge fan of it. It was like, it felt like the Rosetta Stone that helped me to understand how to communicate with other people.
I
And the
love that.
problem is, I'm a very high D, and like I think 11% of the population is. So 11% of people, I would walk away thinking that guy gets it, man. Like, yeah, he's smart. And 89% of people I just thought were dumb. And I had no idea that 89% of people thought I was dumb because I was
Sure.
communicating the wrong way, right? So can you explain like what the DISC profile is and ways that you apply it when you're communicating with the different people in the transaction?
Well, I think that's important. I think if you study it enough, I'm a high D too, by the way. I don't know if that if I exude that or not, or if that's obvious. But I think, and you don't even have to go in depth with it, but just generally understanding, which I don't know which of the areas to place people in, what they're gonna, I get a lot of people that are big on what is it,
Hmm.
they're, they're big part, not, they get excited, right? And so it's, let's be excited about this. How do we do that? And, I get other people wearing their D's and they want the facts. They want to be able to move forward. So I kind of streamline my conversations to here's the facts, here's what's going on. And then I've got the other people who are a lot more emotional about it. Okay,
Hmm.
well, how do we tailor that?
Yeah. So some background here. Your D is your dominant score. It measures how decisive you are. Like you like to make decisions very quickly. If you're a high D, if you're a low D, you like to take your time. You don't like surprises. You like to kind of weigh things through, and you're uncomfortable with making choices when you're in a new environment. Would be the best way to put it. So like Donald Trump, very high D score, very decisive, doesn't have a problem making decisions, doesn't care if half of the country hates him. Like it just isn't his personality. He does not care because his D score is very high. These tend to be CEOs. These tend to be leaders. These tend to be influential people. They also tend to really struggle in personal relationships with more sensitive people because they're a bull in a china store. They just run right over people. It's not really a matter of being right or wrong. It is, I'm wired that way too. It's just knowing you're that way. Your I is your interactive score, and this measures how much you like talking to other people, how excited you get from being around other people. High eyes are the social butterflies, the life of the party. They love attention. They love new smells. They're like a golden retriever that just wants to run around smelling all the new people in the room. This is most agents, I would probably say. Most salespeople are high eyes, and that's why they're good at sales. They like the frequent communication. My I score is very low, so I actually get worn out by having a ton of like interactions with people. It wears me down. I'm much more introverted. Your S score measures your stability, and this would be how much you like just the same thing every day. You like the same pace. You don't like surprises. You're drawn to certainty and familiarity. Low S scores need a lot of variety. They need to be surprised. They can't do the same thing every day. It kills them. And then your C score is your conscientiousness, and this would refer to your attention to detail. These are architects, engineers, doctors, lawyers. They memorize graphs and charts and policy. These are the ones that know every single thing in the contract and can cite it verbatim. This is your client that like you refer to their house as a 1979 ranch and they're like, actually it's a 1978, and now they'll never trust you again because you said the wrong thing, right? And low C's are people that don't really care about details. They maybe are more musicians or artists type of a thing. And I love that you brought this up because what I've found is that if you communicate somebody based on their values, they will like you and they will trust you way faster, even if it's not normal to you. If you communicate based on your values, they're going to have a much harder time thinking that you get it, right? Was this something that you learned the hard way, or did you kind of figure this out quickly?
I kind of figured it out quickly. I think there was value in me getting into real estate as young as I did because over time, have actually developed more of the D than I did. I was obviously, what's funny is my D and my I are both actually pretty high. But I wasn't always high D. And so I think I learned that from, getting into real estate young. It was very quickly learned, that if I'm dealing with somebody that's, a C maybe, and making them fit into my box, they're definitely not going to trust me. And it's funny you say that because one client in particular comes to mind from, 15 years ago that was very, made that kind of a quick, oh, I need to learn this lesson quickly and, pivot and do all of that.
Yeah,
So,
tell us that story. What did that go like? How did you figure it out? This is going to be good.
oh, I don't know if I want to revisit that. Oh, it was bad. So I was a year into real estate. So I'm 19 at this point. I had just bought my first home and I'm thinking, this is going great. I'm doing whatever. I get a high end client who is very C. He's an engineer. He's numbers oriented. He's very almost kind of, not even making decisions quickly, but just straight to the point. He wants all the facts. And then you get this bubbly little girl that comes in and is just trying, don't you feel this? Isn't this great? Isn't it? And he kind of just made some comments that were harsh enough for me to be like, oh, you don't care about anything of what I'm saying right now. I'm not clicking with you at all. And fortunately, he still went through. We had because I'm the type of person that I am, we were able to have that honest conversation where I just said, I understand, I am not giving you what your needs are. How do we pivot? So he still closed on the house. We're actually still in touch, which is fabulous. But it definitely was a moment of me, like if I am going to make it in this business at all, I need to learn how to pivot because I was making him feel uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable. I wasn't serving him in the way that I should have. And so the good news is I mean, if you can connect with people, there's always a way to pivot, and not always, but most of the time you can pull it together. So I was able to do that, but he definitely, kind of put me in my place on, look, you're telling me things I genuinely do not care about. So why are we spending any time doing this?
And
It was a quick.
that can hurt your emotions, but it can also help your business savvy. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an amazing story because if you're humble enough to receive that kind of correction, you'll get better, right? When you were telling that story, I was thinking, if every single client that all of us ever had, we asked that question, hey, I feel like we're not clicking and I'm missing something. What are you looking for me that you're not getting? And we made them feel safe to tell us. What you'd find is a D would say, you're wasting my time. You're not showing up prepared. You didn't do your research first. You should have looked at this house before you sent it to me and said, what do you think? It obviously has a pool. And I said, I don't want a pool, or I want a pool and a hot tub and it only has a pool. You don't care. And your eye would be like, I had no idea that that's what they wanted from me. Right. And when you met the eyes, they'd say something like, I don't know, like, we just don't get along. Like, you don't like me. You're like, what? They're like, yeah, every time you call me, you just want to talk about business. You don't ask how my day was. You don't know my kids' names. I had no idea that's what you were looking for. And like the S's would tell you, you're pushing me too fast, or you haven't explained what the process looks like. You're not giving me time to think about it. You're telling me I have to write an offer tonight. And you as the agent are like, yeah, because the other agent said that they got 2 other offers coming in and I don't want you to lose it. But they think you're being greedy, right? And if we all could receive this feedback about how we're communicating, and then we had the humility to incorporate that into our communication, we'd become a badass pretty fast. You'd be able to just switch your communication styles with every client. Is that more or less like what you've kind of done with this information?
Yeah, actually, and it was until this moment, I've literally never put that together. So thank you. That was wonderful.
Yeah, I know you were kind of nervous to tell the story because it's embarrassing, but that's probably why you're selling houses in a very difficult market. And that's why you come across as a professional that's really good. And that's why Angela loved you, is you figured out how Angela likes to receive information. You communicated with her the way she does. And that spoonful of sugar made the medicine go down. And I guess if you're in sales, this is sort of non-negotiable for everybody that wants to be good at in a relationship with a romantic partner, with your friendships. Like, not everybody's going to have the same values that I have, and it's kind of arrogant to think that they should. It's much more servant focused to think what their values are and how I can adapt to them.
Sure, absolutely. I love that.
So in Utah, what are some of the challenges specifically that you feel like you're facing in your market that you're trying to overcome today?
Hmm. So in Utah, I mean, I feel like I mean, I feel like a lot of people across the globe right now are just kind of dealing with the same thing, right? We've
Mm-hmm.
got high interest rates. Utah actually, in our meeting today, I want to say it was like we're 51 on, most upside down in the country. So everybody's got tons of equity in their house. Not only do they have tons of equity in their house, but they've got, or 50. um, 51 was on the thing and we had to make a joke about it. That's
Well,
why.
I mean, if we can get Canada to be the 51st state, that
Yes.
statement will be true.
Yes, that's what we talked about today. We're trying. We're trying. I had it. I'm bringing it in. But so we've got tons of equity, and then everybody, you couple that with, low interest rates. And so I have a lot of clients that I want to make a move, I want to downsize, I want to up, I want to do all of these different things, but you're competing against high home prices and high interest rates. And so a lot of people kind of feel like they're stuck a little bit, which has been, a bit of a challenge to deal with.
So are you referring to the golden handcuffs where sellers don't
Yes.
want to sell their house to get their equity because they would have
Hmm.
their interest rate double?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
a great point. I think before rates went up, I believe, just from my experience in real estate, that the perception that most people had was the fear of real estate collapsing is prices coming down. Everybody was like, what's the price of the house and is it going to come down? And when rates went up, they assumed that would mean prices have to come down. This was a very common misconception that I was getting beat over the head online with people saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. Prices are going to collapse. Rates are going up. And I kind of stood in there and took it and said, it doesn't have to happen. Like when rates go up, demand goes down. Yes, but that doesn't mean prices will go down, because if you have not enough supply, demand has to come down a lot before it even catches up with supply. And I didn't think that was going to happen. You'd have to have like a recession to make prices come down. Like people have to lose their jobs, but just interest rates alone isn't enough to force prices down. But what we saw was prices didn't come down. Transactions went down. Just nobody's selling their house. Like it's not moving. Inventory is staying stuck. And that's really hard on the economy, because when a house doesn't sell, an agent doesn't get paid, a broker doesn't get paid, a photographer doesn't get paid, a handyman doesn't get paid, title and escrow don't get paid, a loan officer doesn't get paid. Like you can go through this list of a lot of humans that aren't making money right now, even though you would think that the market's doing just fine. Like, what's your thoughts on what agents can do to survive as we're in this place where it doesn't look like this is going to turn around anytime soon, especially with all the tariff talk?
So at least I actually just got asked this question because last year I ended up having we had awards, right? And I had an agent in my office ask, how on earth was it last year that was one of the lowest years
Yeah.
across the US for sales? And, so they were just kind of asking. And I think as us as realtors, we've got opportunities to still get really creative on what people's needs are. So I've been able to do a lot of, true non-traditional, sales. I've really educated myself the last 3 years, 4 years, probably 4 years on seller finance deals. I've been able to do that. I've got, there's people that still have cash. There's people that still need to relocate and move out, whether they want to or not, it's kind of a forced thing. So being able to target those people have really kind of helped, float the business in the meantime and be able to still pull those deals together. Cause like I said, we can pivot in anything. You just have to get creative on it. So if it's not your traditional.
Are you of the mind that when the market's slow, you just accept it, it's going to be slow? Or are you sort of stepping up your communication with your database so that when it picks up, you've laid a foundation and you're in touch with them and you'll hit the ground running?
Definitely the latter for sure. So, and it's funny too, because even when you approach it with that mindset of, okay, it's slow right now, but I'm just, I'm going to put in the work and do that so that the foundation's laid, those deals still come. You put in the work and the deals will still come. So, you're putting in the work and my thought is, okay, well, when the market, kind of picks back up, no, there's people that I'm finding now, there's people that need it now. And it's definitely, helped provide a successful business even through 2024.
I love that. And I think everyone I know that became successful, it was forged when times were difficult. I can't think of anyone at anything in life that became really successful when the environment was easy and you could be lazy. It's always in a recession, a difficult childhood that they had to endure, painful experiences in life that they experienced frequently that forced them. Even your example of being 19 and an agent and getting crushed by this grown man had to be so, you still see the look on your face of what that was like, right?
Yeah.
But it forced you to adapt. And now you're sitting here on a podcast talking about like these really good strategies for communicating with people better. So let that be a sense of encouragement for everyone out there, that sometimes the painful thing is actually the best thing that could happen to you. And our country, no one can predict the future, but it looks to me like we're about to head into a painful transition. There's going to be a restructuring of wealth. A lot of the big tech companies and big, huge corporations that have made a ton of money are slowly going to feel pain. That means the stock market's going to feel pain. And that's going to lead to us being in a situation where we have to get kind of more blue collar jobs coming along. And that transition may be tough, but greatness can come out of it. Danyl, I appreciate you being here. I know you've got some stuff to do and you took time out of your busy day to talk to us. I really appreciate that. Can you tell people where they can find you if they've got some referrals to send you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's Danyl Danyl. First four letters of my last, so DanyLFoul is my Instagram, and that's pretty much mainly where I am.
Any website?
Uh, No, it's
I
under.
love that. Nobody needs a website. Nobody's looking up real
Sorry.
estate agents on their website.
I
This has been a thing for so long. And it's just like, sorry if you have one. I have one too, but it's like a big
know.
ego thing. Nobody's looking up their agents. Everybody's
I
stalking
don't.
everyone the same way. It's on
Mhm.
social media. That's how we all get to know people. So I actually like that you don't have one and you have the courage to say that.
Thanks for making me feel a little bit better about it. I was hoping like my broker wasn't going to walk by or something when I said that.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. We'll have to have you on again in the future to talk about more stuff. Thank you.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right, everyone, there you go. Make sure you check out next week for another episode of Real Talk Realtor. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you thought of the show, and make sure you send Danielle a thank you on Instagram for being on the show.